Hey guys, welcome back to Wild Tracks. Just over a year ago I posted a video about my Marmot 3 tent. So in that video I inspected my tent and I had to do some repairs as well. But that was primarily focused on the fly. So I had to reseal the seams of the fly, which I did with a homemade silicone mixture. And that worked really well. I have used the tent a few times since that video. Maybe 2 or 3 times in actually bad conditions, in wind and rain, and it was not leaking at all. So I think that worked really nicely. Today I want to do something very similar but for the inner tent. So I want to check the floor material and the seams, specifically the sealing of the seams around the bar top. Just making sure it's in a good state. And if it's not, I'm going to clean it up a little bit. I'm going to make that homemade silicone mixture and apply that along the seams. Alright, so let's have a look. Let's have a look at the seams. As you can see, it starts peeling somewhat, but not as bad, definitely not as bad as the fly at a time. Right, so next I'm gonna brush the seams, but only very lightly with a soft brush. I don't want to apply too much pressure. Then we're gonna shake out the tent, make the mixture and apply the mixture. Actually not really coming off, which is not a bad thing. It's primarily these corners where I removed some of the old seal. So I'm not peeling off these old seal because when I put my silicone over it, it will cover that. I just want to make sure I cover things like this here. You can see there's a clear gap. That's what I need to fix. I want to stake out the tent a bit more so it's a bit more spread, and that makes it easier to apply the silicone mixture. So I'm mixing these two products, a mineral turpentine with an all-purpose silicone sealant, a clear one. And the ratio about 1 part of mineral turpentine, 2 parts of the silicone sealant. The silicone sealant is your main component, obviously. It's all about the silicone. The mineral turpentine is only used to dilute it a bit so you can actually brush it on the fabric. So that means is add the mineral turpentine in small portions until it's thin enough to be brushed on, but not as thin like water. Yeah, that will not work. And also, when you do this job, do it on a day that you have some sun, but it's not too warm. Otherwise, this mixture will dry out fairly quickly because the turpentine will evaporate. I add only a tiny bit. This is what it looks like. And I just use a regular paintbrush, this one, to brush it on. This is a 25 millimeters width. That works fine. This looks like it has a good consistency. So you don't want to have it too thick, but definitely not too thin. Alright, let's use this. Alright, here we go. I'm starting here in the corner. And just apply it along the seam. This needs about 24 hours to dry out completely. It will be sticky for quite some time, but after a full day it should feel smooth. Probably going to add another 100 gram, maybe 200 grams to the weight of the inner tent. But yeah, that's okay. So almost done. Some of the old seals came off while I've applied the new silicone layer, like this one for instance, and then I just remove it. It's obviously a way better seal that way. I just have to remove this little bit as well. The final bit. So when you do a job like this, it's recommended to do it in a ventilated area, ideally outside. The fumes that comes from this silicone mixture is quite strong. And I would also recommend not to use the tent for at least a day or two until all those fumes are gone. Alright, so job done. There's one recommendation I would pass on if you have a similar project in mind. You may want to remove more of the old seal. Obviously, the more you remove it, the better this new layer will cover the seam and makes it waterproof. Alright guys, that's all for now. Only thing to do is now to leave the tent here so the silicone can dry out. I will check in a couple of hours, feel it. Once it's touch dry, I can actually pack away the tent, but I definitely leave it here for another 6, 7, maybe 8 hours.
A few moments later.
Alright, so it has been now about 7 hours, 6, 7 hours after I applied the silicone, and this is what it looks like. Obviously there's still some traces of the blisters, if you can call it, of the old seal, but it definitely feels good. It is dry. I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. See you next time. Ciao.